very quickly, because I can't resist, I just want some gossip. You are one of the most well-respected diplomats in all of Asia. We've read so many stories about you, heard your speeches, and also heard about a lot of story about your experience of the past few decades. What is some of your most memorable times personally for you, and with regards to China and in relationship with Chinese state leaders?
I was a young minister, and Li Guangyao was trying to teach me. So there was one year, I think it was in 1990 or 1991, George Bush Sr. was in Singapore. And a few days later, Yang Shangkun, China's president, would be in Singapore. So Li Guangyao asked me they had two private meetings. So he asked me to be the note taker for both meetings. So with George Bush, the note taker was Brent Scowcroft, National Security Advisor. And George Bush was US ambassador to China. He was also CIA chief. And he meant China well. And he told Li Guangyao to pass a message to Yang Shangkun to help him help China. Because Congress was making a big deal over MFN, Most Favored Nation status. So I took the notes for that meeting. Then a few days later, I saw the way Li Guangyao met Yang Shangkun. And Yang Shangkun was already elderly, he sat back. But he was such a large man, large in spirit, You could say anything to him, he can accept it. Because he has seen war before. He has seen deaths. And Li Guangyao told him, China should join GATT before the WTO. So you avoid this MFN yearly struggle. And Li Guangyao has some critical things to say about China. He meant it in a good way. Yang Shangkun took it in a very relaxed, big-hearted way. I still have the notebook where I kept notes of both meetings. I'm a very bad note taker. I don't write detailed sentences. I just make a few points. Then I write it up. That to me was a great privilege to watch two meetings. And Li Guangyao was respected by both of them. And he did not behave as if he was the prime minister of a small country. They respected him because he did not talk like the leader of a small country. He was respected because his mind and his heart embraced them. So that was very impressive. I was at that time, 1991, 54, 37 years old. And it was a privilege to have been asked by Li Guangyao to be his note taker for both meetings. And that led subsequently to APEC and to many other things. Because China was recovering from the sanctions resulting from Liu Si. And Bush wanted to help China. Because at that time, there were other challenges.
And from then on, that really kickstarted China fully joining the globalized trading system.
It took almost 10 years. And when I was trade minister, I was very involved in that. Not directly, but indirectly. China acceded to the WTO under more exacting terms than any other country which joined the WTO. I know the people who were involved. Bob Zoellick, Pascal Lamy, and they were negotiating for the US, for America. Japan had its interests. Other countries had their interests. And they were all afraid that China will swamp them with cheap manufacturing. So they gave China developing country status, which China deserved. But there are all kinds of constraints. They didn't recognize China as a market economy. After China joined the WTO in Doha, I was there. Xi Guangsheng, Long Yong-tu, they were all there. Everybody clapped. The following day, Taiwan also joined. It was part of an agreement. A few years later, Singapore, New Zealand, Chile, and Brunei established the TPP. I met Xi Guangsheng. I said, why don't you join the TPP? He said, China already gave in so much. So when people today say that they should not have allowed China to
China took advantage and
they didn't realize that they pushed China to the limit for its accession to the WTO. No one knew, not even China, that China would continue to grow steadily over the next 20 years. So that by the beginning of COVID, at the end of 2019, China's economy had grown 7 times in PPP terms, 9 times in renminbi terms, and 11 times in US dollar terms. So China became very big. And during the global financial crisis in 2008, the G7 could not create sufficient global demand. So the following year, Gordon Brown hosted a second meeting in London. And then all 20 countries agreed to coordinate fiscal and monetary policy. And China introduced a 4 trillion yuan budget. And after that, I read the report. In 3 years, China poured more concrete than the US in its entire history. China was building everywhere to spend. It helped. So the global recession was shorter than it would have been otherwise. But it created enormous distortions in China. And it took China many years to smoothen out those distortions.
Even until today.
Even until today.
Yes.
So part of the property boom had its origins
There.
in those days. But China also developed infrastructure. I went to CHANG in 2009. And before I went up, I called on the vice president, who was Xi Jinping. He said, it's good that you're visiting CHANG. It was after the Olympic Games. And I was the first foreign minister to visit CHANG. And then they brought me to a Nongming house. Then on top was a satellite dish. It says, donated by the State Council and the Communist Party. I said, this is part of the 4 trillion renminbi budget.
The satellite dish is for TV? What was
Well, to receive satellite communication, television, radio, whatever.
Oh, okay.
But China was spending. And China could spend at the time. But China's economy at that time, I think it's 1/3 China's economy today. So today, if there's another global financial crisis, without China, the world will go into a deep recession. And US Treasury knows this. So even under Biden, Yellen was very careful to keep links with China, with Wang Qishan and so on. And Wang Qishan. Because they knew that if there's a crisis, the US and China have to work together. And the US knows that the position of the US dollar as reserve currency requires China's cooperation.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹饪。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧。